From the John DeVita Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network. And now, here is Jim and Rich.
Off and running on another edition of the Armchair Experts. And I thought, in tribute to the Oscars that took place this weekend, I thought I would Travoltify our names.
Oh, you did that? Okay.
Yes, I am. Today I am going to be known as Jay Loing.
Jay Loing?
Loing.
It was Josh.
Well,
Joss Loing.
Joss, if I'm formal.
Okay.
You, alongside of me is Reese Mazoon. We are at the Jan DeVries Broadcast Center, and we want to make sure we give a shout-out to our station manager, Kelvin Sanchez.
Hey, all right. I think that was the best name of all, Kelvin Sanchez.
Kelvin Sanchez.
Hey, you know what? Speaking of
Kelvin
things
Sanchez?
other than sports, where did we get this funky music that we have?
I
It's
don't
not
know.
funky. It's sort of jazzy.
It has that jazz. Mr. DeVries, or DeVries, what is the source of that music?
It came from Kevin.
Came from
Kevin.
Yeah,
Okay.
Kevin gave it to me. And
No,
told me,
Kelvin Sanchez gave it to you.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Enough fooling around, Jim. Get
All
down
right.
to brass tacks here.
All
will
right,
you?
what do you want to talk about today? I don't know. We can
I
go.
don't know what's going
You
on.
know, you lead today.
Hey, we got baseball spring training, and
Yeah.
so far, what do you think about the Cubs and the Sox? Why am I leading? I'm supposed to be the analyst here. You're supposed to be leading the show.
I give you answers. You just give me nothing but problems. I thought we'd do it the other way around today.
Well, no, that's just not right.
I watched the first game, the first Cub game last week, and they lost, as they have a lot so far this spring. Although I think they won yesterday.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, nice change of pace. Mm-hmm. Bryant, impressive. Baez had a long home run yesterday.
I tell you, I think that the thing that's going to put Baez in the major leagues, though, is going to be his glove before his bat. His bat's going to be fine, but I got a feeling they're liking him more as the shortstop than they like Castro.
Honestly, I think he is going to be the shortstop, and I think you're going to see either Castro move to second base or get dealt at some point. You can't do anything with him at third base because you got to figure, well, at least right now, I don't know if they can do anything with him at third base because you're going to have to figure out, you're either going to have to find a spot for Mike Holt if he actually proves himself, or Chris Bryant, although most of the experts say Bryant's eventual location is going to be a corner outfield.
I don't get why. That reminds me. I think I've said this before. It reminds me of the Bears when they used to draft fullbacks and make them tight ends. Mike Hull, Robin Earl,
right.
that type of thing. Why are we drafting a third baseman
and
he's going to be a corner outfielder?
Yeah,
all of a sudden?
I don't understand that either.
Are we going to put Ernie Banks back in left field too? He's 80-something. Might be better than the guys we have.
Might be better defense than Soriano showed when he was out there.
and also bring Ron Santos back.
Right.
Yeah, we'd have to resurrect him, though, John.
Yes,
so
I know
it'd
that.
be a
yes.
miracle.
But at least,
then we'd for sure win.
at least we had some good ball players.
Well, I honestly don't know. I think, the experts, the alleged experts, not us, of course.
I thought you were talking about us.
Well, we're armchair experts,
Yes.
but the folks who actually think they know what they're talking about, as opposed to us, where we know what we're talking about, are viewing. You're going to see Baez this season at some point.
I think that's a given.
I think that's a given too, and I think you mentioned it last night when we were at the when we were watching the Johnsburg
Sullivan
game at Ridgewood last night. That you kind of wonder if this injury right now with Castro giving him a chance to take it easy is it maybe kind of getting ready to move Castro to his next position, which You speculate to be second base.
No, I said third base, and I think
third
you
base.
speculated second base, which
I
I think is a better speculation than mine, because I hadn't thought about that, but it sort of meshes in with something else we talked about last night, is that the Yankees are, I think, in the market for a second baseman, and both of the second basemen that we have in town, Beckham and Barney, have been mentioned. And, I think it would be a logical thing if you're going to trade Darwin Barney, that Castro moving to second would be, put it this way, it's a logical move in the sense that he would probably be the guy to put at that spot, because I don't think he's going to third. You got Olt and Bryant coming down the pike, and you've got Baez going to play short, and you already have Murphy and Valbuena at third. But the thing I was going to say, it's logical in the sense that's where you could plug him in. I don't know. I think second base in a lot of instances is just as difficult, if not more difficult, to play than short. A lot of responsibility there that people don't really recognize.
Such as?
Well, I mean, you're the relay man for a lot of things.
Okay.
You're you know what?
You're the point. You're
way.
the point man in a lot of instances on a double play.
Castro is played the left side of the infield,
right,
and he's not super proficient at that. Now you're going to turn him around to the right side, where especially on the double play pivot, you've got him with his back to the first baseman. I mean, there's some, a lot to learn, and I just don't know that he's that good of a defensive man that he'll be any better at second than he was at short. Now, having said that, in terms of just a number of fielding chances, probably would have a lot less than that ball coming right at him. I think there's more things to do in terms of, like I say, relays turn into double play. Probably a little bit less in terms of chances ground ball wise.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be a little trade-off there, but I think you're onto something. That might be where he could be headed.
I think that could be the final place for him. And I mean, you're saddled with a contract as him being one of the quote faces of the franchise when they signed him to that big deal along with Anthony Rizzo a couple of years ago. So I don't know if you can deal him.
Yeah, I don't think it's probably
that would
not
be
doable.
That's not doable, and that's a sure sign of we failed.
Well, the other thing is I don't know. Yeah, that's a great point too.
That's a sure sign we failed. We have to move on,
because what you'd be saying is that here's a guy that we invested a lot of money in. Now we're going to try to move him. So we have to talk good about him. But I think what you're really going to see is the other teams in the major leagues probably don't have that high of an opinion of him. So we're going to have to boost this guy up. We meaning the Chicago Cubs, because I don't think there's any way we get rid of him.
Not
at
what they signed him for, and certainly not. You're not going to get anything for him unless you're going to take somebody else's bad contract.
Yeah. That's right,
and I don't think that's
don't want to do
happen.
that.
No, Bryant was very impressive in his first at bat in a spring training game.
Well, I tell you,
a long home run.
I watched the. I was telling you yesterday. I watched the show that they had on before the Hawks game on Saturday from Soldier Field.
Yeah,
and they showed that home run. And at first, I thought he had gotten jammed and still put it over the center field fence. But what happened is, he really he got his bat in a good place on an inside pitch and drove it over the center field wall. In other words, he was still a little bit late on the pitch.
Late on the pitch.
But he, that's why it went to center instead of left. But he still was able to be quick enough to get the fat part of the bat on the ball and send it over the fence.
Okay. Have you watched? I haven't had an opportunity yet to see any of the White Sox.
I haven't seen. You know what? On that same show, they made a big deal about a Jose Abreu. And I think he batted 3 times. I don't think he got. He might have got an infield single. But you know what? It's really crazy the way they build these guys up, because last week in the paper, they were saying he's a legitimate contender for the home run title this year, and I'm thinking that's nuts. And then. They praised him. He hit one ball good on, that would have been Saturday afternoon. That's what they had the highlight clips from.
Okay.
And the ball was hit okay. It was a line drive towards the line, but it was never a hard play for the left fielder. It was hit okay. and he grounded out to second. I think he got jammed up a little bit, and he may have struck out. But the way they praised him, I just didn't. I didn't see from the clips that they showed where all that praise was coming from.
Yeah, I mean, they described him as, in the Cactus League openers Friday, as being patient at the plate, but 0 for 2. Mm-hmm. And I suppose patience at the plate is a virtue. I know looking at the game the other day when Mike Holt got into the game for the Cubs, did not show any patience, at least I thought. First at bat, swung at the first pitch and popped it up when they had runners they could have moved. Okay. And his final at bat called third strike that was right down the middle.
Okay.
And maybe patience, but not a good eye. So I don't know. I know there was an article. I think I saw a link over the weekend. I didn't get a chance to get to the article about he still feels he has a great chance to be the starting third baseman. I don't know what he's like defensively. If that's someone that you can put up with some of this because he's good defense, that's fine, and you can get the 25, 30 home runs a year or whatever you think out of a corner infielder. But I'm just not seeing it yet.
I tell you, when you talk about patience, Jim, it makes me. I want to go off on a little bit of a tangent here because patience makes me think of. I've counseled, I guess you would say, quite a few hitters over the years, and one of the things I always try to say, and I know it's easier to say than it is to do, but you ever notice guys will swing, guys, girls, whatever, will swing at bad pitches, say early in the count. And what I always say to them is, why are you swinging at a bad pitch early in the count? My philosophy of hitting is look for a spot. Look, you in your mind's eye might have a couple of spots where you like the ball. You like to see the ball in hard ball, whether it's a breaking ball or a fast ball, whatever. But you're looking for that spot. Now, if you don't get that spot and you're swinging, your first strike swinging, or with no strikes you're swinging, at a bad pitch, one that you can't handle, why are you doing that? Why are you so afraid? Why not go 2 strikes? I mean, if you're going to swing at the pitcher's pitch, what's the difference if you're swinging at it 2 strikes or no strikes? That'd be my point. So patience is the word they use, but I wouldn't use that word. I'd say look for the pitch where you want it. Look for a pitch you can handle well. And if that pitch comes on the first pitch, you offer at it. If it doesn't, that's when you have your patience. You wait for the pitcher to make the mistake.
Okay, now let me ask you a question, being Mr. Softball that you are and softball manager. Mm-hmm. Did you send your hitters up there and tell them, hold off on the first pitch or look for your, or as you just say, look for your pitch?
No, I'm a guy who look for your pitch. There might be an occasion when I might tell a hitter, you know what, I want you to look over a couple of pitches because we need a runner on base, and you know what, to have the pitcher behind in the count is going to be advantageous to us. And maybe if you have, it doesn't happen that often, but you had somebody who's having trouble throwing strikes, maybe you do that. But most hitters are up there, they want to swing the bat, and so really the best advice is not to tell them to wait, but to tell them to get their pitch.
Okay.
That would be my advice.
Okay, all right. Let's see. You, I guess you, when we were talking last night, if we kind of switch gears here and get over to the Bulls, you seemed rather excited about Jimmer Fredette coming to the Bulls.
I was excited about Jimmer Fredette coming out of college, and I think the point that's being making with Jimmer Fredette being picked up by the Bulls is, if you're the type of player that Jimmer Fredette is, and I'm not saying this as a racist type of remark, but he plays white man's basketball. Okay?
We're searching for the white man's team, with the all white, the elusive all white starting five.
Well, let me put it to you this way: we have a mixture of white and black men on the Bulls that were playing white man's basketball. I'm just going to say, I don't care. That's the way it is.
You're the last in the league in scoring.
Yeah, but we're probably one of the first in the league in defense.
Probably.
And what we got Jimmer Fredette for is for more scoring, and he's going to be an outside threat. And I think he has said himself that he's hoping that Thibodeau is going to be the coach to help resurrect his career. And when you look at Thibodeau's track record, I would say that anybody who's in the position that a guy like Jimmer Fredette is in would want to come and play for Tom Thibodeau. Because now Nate Robinson, I would say, is a totally different type of player from Tom Thibodeau, yet he did very well under Thibodeau's system. The other thing that
did he actually play in the system?
Well, let me say this: Nate Robinson played in Boston when Tom Thibodeau was in Boston
as an assistant, right?
If Tom Thibodeau did not think that Nate Robinson could play in his system, I don't think you would ever have seen Nate Robinson in Chicago. I think the thing that people miss
I don't think Tom Thibodeau has much of a say over who they bring in.
Yeah, I think he does. I think he's got a big say.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. That's the way I look at it. When you look at the players they bring in, how about what? Mike James is a guy that played for him in Houston. They brought Mike James in 6 times?
6 times. That's true.
Over the years,
they just keep bringing him back.
They just keep bringing him back. In fact, he may be on the team right now.
I don't think so.
I saw they had 11 men in the box score in the game that they played against the Knicks. So that means one guy didn't play, and I'm assuming that was Mike James. No, it wasn't the new guy. It wasn't Shingilia or whatever his name is.
No, Shingilia was in there. Murphy was in there. Fredette, Snell, Gibson. Nazi Muhammad did not play.
So, Nazi Muhammad wasn't in the game. So, but I think Mike James might still be with the team because can't they carry a couple guys who don't dress?
Possibly. I don't know.
But they use him as but here's my point. I think that Thibodeau has more input on that than the papers give him credit for. Well, when you look at it like this, they traded Luol Deng, which I'm sure everybody would say, well, they did it, and Thibodeau loved Luol Deng, and he probably wouldn't want to do it. But I'm sure that they bring the coach in on the idea, okay, we're trading Deng for this reason. You may love Luol Deng. We're trading him. We're in the process of clearing some money.
We're clearing money.
We're clearing his cap. Yeah. As long as he's up with the plan, he may love the player, and he may love the player they get rid of, but as long as he's on board with the plan, that's the big thing. So I think the papers play it like, he's got no input. Gar Forman and Paxson do the whole thing, and Thibodeau's got no input. Are you kidding? I mean, and most of the rumors that you see, first he was going to go to Boston. Now they're saying he's going to go to the Knicks, and he's pretty much saying in the last week,
I'm staying here.
I'm staying here. Yeah. This is where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think of as they continue to bring up the point of saying, the Bulls need to go after Carmelo Anthony?
That's a terrible.
I think it's
not a fit.
That's not a fit here.
It's not a fit. It's and believe me, I'll use as an example a guy, and I really like the guy, the lefty that they brought in from Indiana that one year. Where he played with the Fab Five. What's his name? He's on TV now. You see him.
Who was here? Let's see. Was that Jalen Rose?
Jalen Rose.
Yeah.
Jalen Rose, excellent talent, excellent ball player, but I don't think Jalen Rose would fit, say, with this group. And I don't think Jalen Rose is, again, a great talent, but almost like a street player. That's the way I look at Carmelo Anthony. I mean, he's going to put up a lot of points, but nobody ever says, how many points does Carmelo Anthony give up? Is he a lockdown type of, I hate that term. Is he a good defender? I don't know.
No.
And if he's not going to be a good defender, he's not going to fit in well with the Bulls.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the fact, and I'm just kind of glancing here at Cowley's column from over the weekend.
That's a useless column.
Yeah.
Guy.
Yeah, well, I'm not a fan.
Go ahead.
I'm not a fan of Cowley, but, I mean, there's one term that jumps out of off of here, and he's talking about the Knicks being a failed one-man show right now.
That says something right there.
And the Bulls have won 9 out of their last 10 and have done so as a team. And here's the 3 words. Here's the 3 words that say it all right there. Noah's unselfish play, which is exactly the key to this team right now.
Well, I've said from
as goofy as he can get sometimes, he is one of the most unselfish ball players I've ever seen on the court.
I have to tell you this. From day one, when they drafted him, I was excited by the fact that they drafted him. I like the fact that how many times do you see a college team repeat as national champs? And when you looked at the team that Billy Donovan had down there in Florida with Noah and the other guy who's in the pros with Miami, doesn't play that much role player with the Heat. At any rate, those guys that was a team effort by the Florida Gators to win those 2 national championships in a row. I know that Noah had some problems with his teammates, I think, early on, which I don't think was any doing of his.
It was not any doing of his. When he came into that locker room then, I mean, what you were talking about was a bunch of selfish guys.
Yeah, you had a zoo there.
Yeah, it was a zoo.
And what I would say is I don't think Joakim Noah is a good player. I think he's a great player.
Mm-hmm.
I would look at him in terms of I would look at him in the same terms of as a guy with Bill Russell. Bill Russell was not a super offensive guy, but the energy he brought to his team, the defensive play, just the overall hustle. And when you really look at Bill Russell, he'd be the first one to say, I'm not a scorer, but if you look at some of the team stats from the old Celtics days, Russell might be the number 2 scorer on the team.
I mean, I'm looking at Noah's line from Sunday against the Knicks. 13 points, 12 rebounds, 14 assists.
Oh, that's huge too.
The most assists by a center since at least 1986.
Okay, yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, there's this, and I think that guys like, when you look at guys like Joakim Noah, Taj Gibson, even though he's always put down by the press, Carlos Boozer, Kirk Heinrich.
Boozer hasn't played. I don't think Boozer's played badly this year.
Well, but he's the whipping boy.
He's
of the
whipping
press
boy
and the fans to a certain degree.
And to a certain extent, Thibodeau.
I don't believe that though, Jim. I think
sometimes he's told Boozer needs to prove himself to be out there at the critical points.
Okay, and this is what I say. The term tough love has been abused over the years by people who want to abuse it. I was thinking about this in terms of the Hawks. Okay, I know that over the course of this year, Brian Bickle, who signed a big contract over the summer, has been hurt.
Right.
And Quenneville, who I very much think is in the same sort of realm as Thibodeau as a coach.
Absolutely.
Quenneville has made him a healthy scratch, and try to send the message. But I think what the message is for guys like, say, Boozer or Bickle. Now Bickle, I think, is probably still playing a little bit hurt. But what Quenneville is saying by making him a healthy scratch, I don't care if you're hurt. You're not hurt enough not to play. You need to give us. You've got more to give. You need to give us more and get all. You know what?
The effort.
We can't. If in your mind the injury is an excuse, that excuse has got to go. And I think, even though it's not dealing with an injury, the same thing applies to Carlos Boozer with Thibodeau. Is, you know what? You can give us more. You can be that guy at the end of the game that we have there in the fourth quarter. This is what I need out of you. And I look at it as a Bobby Knight would say it, the positive effects of negative thinking. I mean, you can motivate positively by doing a negative thing. And I think that's what these guys, Thibodeau and Quenneville, are old-fashioned coaches. And it works. It worked 30 years ago. It works now.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to be curious to watch Jimmer Fredette.
I think he'll do well there.
Curious to watch him because he admits that he wanted to be coached by Tom Thibodeau.
Well,
think of the reclamation projects. I mean, you mentioned Nate Robinson. I think Nate. I always thought Nate. He never met a shot he didn't like.
Oh,
and DJ Augustin has turned into a great project this year and has been successful.
Plus, you had Marco Bellinelli.
23.
I don't think anybody knew who Marco Bellinelli was.
No. In fact, 23 points Sunday.
Who was that?
Augustine.
Yeah. There's the other great thing about the Bulls. When you look at when they play, I look at their box score. and you never know who's going to be the top guy in scoring.
Yeah.
And they'll always, I'll bet you, in that game,
And
what did they
Augustin-
have, 5
and
or 6 guys in double figures?
And Augustin came off the bench.
Augustine came off the bench.
Dunleavy with 10, Boozer with 14, Noah with 13, Heinrich with 11, Butler with 19, Augustin with 23, Gibson with 13.
So that's 6 or 7 guys
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
That's as a coach. I think that's what you want, especially when you don't have, it's what works for you. My buddy, our friend Ron Kalina, when he coached,
Yeah.
he would freely admit to you he ran the star system. He usually had 1 scorer, maybe 2. That worked fine for him, and the personnel he had fit that. This obviously is a team effort, but I think based on the players they have, that's what they need to do. They don't have a star to step up. And I'll say this again. I'm not a anti-Derrick Rose guy. Derrick Rose, very talented guy and very good team player. But when you have when Derrick Rose steps on the court with this team, there's a subtle change, and it may not always be for the good, because now he's the focus on a team of guys that are, and again, he's part of the team. He's not trying to upstage the team. I'm not trying to say that. But there's too much focus on what Derrick Rose does and less of a focus on the other guys, where I think these guys really play well when the team is the focus.
I mean, Noah's description of Sunday's game and his performance was just dribble, hand off, guys hitting shots.
Yeah, there you go.
And, he said it's really all my teammates. That's who he gave the credit to. And they are hungry the way they play. Are they going to go well are they going to go far into the playoffs? Probably not.
I don't think so.
Probably not.
But they're an enjoyable.
And the question, the question will be, using my favorite term, is how are the meatballs going to react?
Well, the meatballs will react by we need Carmelo, we need this, we need that. Now, the one guy I would say that cleared the decks for him because he's the best in the game, LeBron James. If you could bring LeBron James to Chicago, we're going to win the championship. I'm telling you that right now.
He had 61 last night.
61.
61 points last night.
The beautiful thing about LeBron James too is he does it. Now I didn't watch the game. Everything he does is in the context of the team. Okay. I think Collie, which I can't believe, actually came up with an idea that I thought was perfect. He was contrasting LeBron James to Michael Jordan, and he said it's Michael Jordan was like an assassin. I mean, if it wasn't getting done, he'd do it.
He'd do it.
LeBron James is a facilitator.
Mm-hmm.
And even though he puts up the big numbers, he is a facilitator. And that was a very, very astute observation by Collie, and I think right on the money. They're both, the effect is the same. Their teams win, but they do it a little bit different way.
Mm-hmm.
And again, excuse me. Depending on your situation, who your teammates are, your coach, the organization, it can be done in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, but James would fit in where Anthony wouldn't, because
he's
a team guy.
He would
Anthony
fit in.
Is
he would fit in.
He would fit in definitely.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah,
I can see no addition off to him, and him kicking it back out to somebody else if they had the opportunity.
Definitely.
Oh man, I could see it. Have you seen him with this mask he's wearing with the broken nose?
No.
Oh my gosh, he looks positively evil.
Really?
Well, it's not this clear plastic Rip Hamilton mask type thing. The thing I saw him put it on, and he had an eye shield come down. It was dark. I said, I thought, oh my God, Hannibal Lecter is out on the court.
Well, LeBron has done something with that, an application to the way I think about things that for me is almost unheard of. Very rarely does a player that I don't like really turn me totally around, and he's done that. And I could maybe count on one hand with fingers left over the number of people that I've seen over the course of time that have done that, in my opinion, where they've changed my mind from negative to positive.
It's exactly the same way I felt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that made me feel he grew up or turn my opinion around was when Miami won their first championship, and the first thing he did was go over to the other bench and shake hands with everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I thought, Dwayne Wade, on the other hand, is jumping on top of the scorer's table looking for the camera,
Yeah,
and
there you
LeBron is going over and shaking hands.
go. Yeah,
That shows me the sign of the gentleman.
sure. I think so.
And when they won this past year,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when the buzzer went off, the final buzzer, he turned around, hugged one of the other players, and shook hands with everyone on the court.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah, good man. He's a good man.
He's a good.
I'd say.
He's a good man. He's a great basketball player, and boy, would he fit well here.
He would. And you know what? I know that he'll never hear any of what we have to say, but my thinking on the whole thing
he
is...
listens. He listens to us.
Okay, you've heard from him.
I've
then.
heard from him.
Well, LeBron, then let me say this. Just think of it. You come to Chicago where the only people who diss you are mainly Chicagoans who compare you negatively to Michael. You
Right.
come to Michael's town, you turn Michael's team back into a champion, and you've just put the icing on the cake, my friend. And that's the way I would look at it. And I know that LeBron James is a competitor, and he's probably a loyal guy in terms of where he's at in Miami now. Although people probably would say, "Oh yeah, but they left Cleveland."
He can opt out. I hear music in the background.
I hear music.
Jan Daveries is telling us it's time for a station break.
Yeah. Okay.
And you are listening to Armchair Experts on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center. And now back to Armchair Experts, and here is Jim and Rich.
All right, we're back.
You ever notice with John, there's no BSing around?
No,
He just,
no.
he just goes right to it. Hey, that's
Hey,
it.
that's it. You guys
shut up.
are on.
Whoa, we got a break here.
We got to
and,
break, do your stuff,
come
and
back
then
when
come
I give
back
you the
down.
finger. I mean, when I point at you. That's it. John would never give you the finger.
No. John just puts up with us. He sits there right now, shakes his head, and
I
goes,
can see, you know what, John? I can now see Kevin listening to this tape. We get halfway through safely. Other than saying that basketball's a white man's sport, Rich hasn't said anything to disrupt the contest. I mean, the broadcast. And now he's talking about John giving us the finger. So the whole, do you think this thing's going to go on the air tomorrow, John? I don't know.
John just crossed himself.
Oh, God. John probably thinking, what?
It's a good thing Divine Savior's right down the street.
I know.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I
We'll
know.
all hit that after
I
the
know.
show.
Yeah, we'll all run over there.
boy,
I
boy.
don't know. I don't know.
Talking about shaking hands, we were watching the Sullivan
Johnsburg.
Johnsburg game yesterday, and I was asking Jim. I said, when the heck did it become the players shake hands with everybody? They shake hands with each other. They shake hands with the officials. They shake hands with the opposing coach. I mean, I don't object to shaking hands, but at some point I was saying, doesn't it get a little bit like meaningless after you're shaking hands with everybody?
And the other thing that I thought at one point you were referring to is they come off the court.
That was the other.
Yeah. Hey, you know.
Well, you know what kills me? Here's a guy will be at the free throw line. Okay, we're talking about basketball.
Yeah.
He'll clunk a free throw. Even in a critical situation, everybody's coming up patting him on the butt. I'm like, I'd be sitting there thinking, come on, man, we need this free throw. What are you're patting the guy? Come on, make the free throw.
Yeah, you got to give him a little encouragement because in this day and age, everybody gets a trophy.
Well, Jim, you know, it's really funny that you should bring that up because I ran into Dan Burt, who his son Nick played basketball at Ridgewood, and Andy Ronstadt at Coffee on the weekend. And this subject of everybody getting the trophy came up. And you know what I realized? A lot of parents, I don't know if this is the soccer mom deal or what, but a lot of people, I guess male people, I'd say, well, what is that all about? And I thought back to when I was a kid and playing, I remember baseball, but I don't remember how they did it. But in football, I played from the time I was 8 in Little League till I graduated grade school. And we had a bad team almost every year. We didn't get a trophy. And then our final year, we won the championship, and we got our trophies. And that wasn't even the point. Getting the trophy is not the point I'm trying to make. First off, the fact that I didn't get trophies in all those other years had no effect on me in the sense that I was out there to play because I wanted to play. The fact that I got a trophy because we won the last year also didn't have much effect because the memory of the thing is what you did with your teammates. I mean, you know how they always say it's the journey, it's not the end of the journey, or however they put it.
Right.
I mean, a lot of times you win that championship, and it's like, okay, now what? Because the enjoyable part has been all of the stuff
getting to that point.
And so the trophies, I guess I would say, in my mind, are really sort of irrelevant because they don't mean anything. And whether you're on a last-place team, first-place team, I think it's your teammates, your coaches, the effort you put into it yourself are the things that you get out of the game. And the trophy is just a piece of hardware.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my take on it.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little high school basketball.
High school basketball. You wanted to bring up Curie.
Yeah, what about, as I happen to glance here at yesterday's Sun-Times and see the boys' Super 25 ranking in the Sun-Times, and number one is Curie, now with an 0-25 record.
Well, I think
awaiting IHSA decision.
I think you should cut that. Those rankings out because that's probably the first and last time you'll ever see anything like that. The situation, the way I understand it, is that the CPS, the Chicago Public Schools eligibility threshold, is a 2.0 grade point average that you have to maintain to be eligible. The IHSA's is a 1.8. So Curie's players stumbled on the CPS eligibility rules as opposed to the IHSA's, and it's the interesting thing there is that the CPS in this case, I guess that makes sense. CPS trumps IHSA, so they're sort of self-policing. And the problem I have with the whole thing, and I think Tellender, I didn't read his column, but he alluded to it, is the problem's not with the kids. In this case, the kids get the benefit of saying all of our wins, which we really did win, go out the door. But the problem's with the adults. I know I mentioned to you yesterday that Ridgewood, all the athletes that are in season are looked at, their grades are looked at weekly, so you're weekly either eligible or ineligible. And I don't see the reason that can't be done in the Chicago schools in this case. So the problem, I agree, I think, is with the adults.
I think I think one of the things that probably made this a bigger deal than really what it was the allowing of Curry to play in the game against Young, just simply because it was going to be a big event on ESPN.
That's a great point, too.
You know, they played the city title game in a game that was on ESPN3.com. And, I mean, they even delayed Curry's arrival for 30 minutes to decide whether to let them play. And apparently I didn't really pay any attention to it, but it was a 4 overtime game.
Well, you know, it leads me to think about some other things. You had Cliff Alexander for Curie, and you have Jaleel Okafor with Young.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I think we've really got – I'm not saying, hey, that's a big game and two really good high school players. I think within the city of Chicago, the press covering it, the city press covering it, the local news stations covering it is fine. But when you get to the point where ESPN has got to cover this stuff, I think it gets to the point of ridiculousness. And I think that in the case of all of the kids, but Cliff Alexander and Okafor, Jaleel Okafor especially, I'm not saying that this type of stuff will go to their heads. Hopefully it won't. But, you know, that whole incident with Alexander when they had a little controversy when he went to put the Illinois cap on, and he was
That
taking it
was-
to put the Kansas cap on instead.
Yeah.
I put
That-
it this way: these are really young.
They're
people.
young kids.
They don't need to be in the spotlight at this point
No.
in time. And
No.
the other thing is, if something happens down the road where college, the pros doesn't pan out, you're sort of leaving these kids. Who's there with the safe? And I'm not a big safety net fan guy, but you've built these kids up to a point where now they're thinking, hey, it's inevitable. I'm going to be, not only am I going to be a pro, I'm going to be a big star in the pros. You know what the chances of that happening are?
Slim to none.
I don't care how good these
Right.
guys are. They're very slim.
Right.
And now you've built them up to a point where they have these expectations, and if they don't make them, then what happens?
Right.
Even a kid with a good, some good structure around him will struggle for a while when the rug is pulled out from under him.
Sure. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Going back to the Curie thing, you made the comment about the adults failing the students.
Mm-hmm.
The statement here from CPS representative: students whose grade point averages fall below 2.0 are ineligible except when they have signed and certified ISP, independent study program forms. In this particular case, they did not have the ISPs on file. We believe that this is a case of the adults letting the students down.
Okay.
Okay,
that's so it is, but it also.
I just want to know who ratted Curie out.
Oh, you know what?
Because an anonymous phone call triggered this.
Well, this is the way things have been in the Chicago Public League. I'd say for years, the coach. It's a cutthroat thing. I always get a laugh when they bring in a new coach for DePaul or Illinois or whatever, and we got to stick our noses up the rear ends of the Chicago Public League coaches, who are a bunch of. Well, I mean, I'm not saying everyone, but I mean, you got a lot of cutthroat guys, and you got a lot of people there. You know what it takes to coach in this state, Jim. You go to and if I'm wrong on this, please somebody let me know I'm wrong. But the last time I checked, you go to a weekend, let's say seminar. You pay some money, and after a weekend, you're certified.
You're
to coach.
certified as a coach,
and that I remember. Somebody asking me one time that, how does somebody get in as a coach? How do you get somebody in? I said, it's the same as a job. You have connections. You could be certified as a coach, and if you don't know anybody, you're not going to get a job. So most people who are certified know they have an in somewhere. They're either going to go in as an assistant, or maybe they've been an assistant. They're going to get a job as a head coach.
right?
But they're not going to get that job without some, without their name being out there in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know how I got off on this. I don't know what we were talking about. But
just who ratted out Curie.
Oh, just who ratted out Curie. But what you have is a lot of there are a lot of fly-by-night guys that are coaching, and I would in the public league, because it's so big, I think the oversight is probably not what it should be. And, that they're begging for coaches on top of it. Last night we watched Sullivan, and I'm not going to criticize Sullivan's coach, but I said to you during the game, I said, this is a guy who probably teaches gym
Probably a
or
gym
something
teacher,
in the school, and they said, you're the coach.
Yeah.
He's
By default.
He doesn't look at himself as a coach, so you're not, his team is not, is he going to coach him? Sure.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as a guy who says, I'm a coach, man or woman, who says, I'm a coach, I'm going to run a program. It's a totally different thing. So, is he going to coach his kids to the best of his ability? Sure.
He's going to, and I mean, we sat there and looked at that last night, and I think I counted, with the 5 players on the floor, there were 6 other players sitting on the Sullivan bench.
Okay.
Where I looked over at the Johnsburg bench, and there were 15 sitting on it. He had a program. Johnsburg had a program. Sullivan had a team.
That's the point. And you know what? When you looked at the talent, I would say this. Probably the talent, my guess is the talent was probably fairly equal. The difference in that game is strictly the coaching.
Yeah.
And the fact that when I looked at Sullivan's kids, I said, hey, it's not like you had the walking wounded out there. There's talented players out there. Those kids, and it's a shame, they love basketball. None of them, I would say, is talented enough to be pros or college players, but they were talented enough to be better than what they were.
Yeah. And I looked at them last night, too, and I thought about something that we saw a number of times this year. Nobody got down, especially with Sullivan, nobody ran an offense.
They didn't run it. No, they didn't run an offense at all.
They just came down and, looked for the opportunity and fired it up. And, and then, the end product was they lost 77-38.
Oh, yeah. And again, I'm not saying even with better coaching, could they have beat Johnsburg?
No.
I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
But you know
I don't
what?
think
They
so.
could. My whole point, and one of my biggest items as a person, is you love to see somebody be in a position where they are instructed or coached, or they have somebody who influences them, where they can come as close as they can possibly be to being the best they can be at that particular point in time. And that's the shame of that whole thing. I'm not criticizing the Sullivan coach. I think you put somebody in we had a coach at Ridgewood for the girls a few years back. Was a science teacher. He knew basketball. He had played basketball. But probably the last thing he ever thought when he signed a contract at Ridgewood to be a teacher was, you're going to be the head coach of a program. I'm sure he never thought about that, but he was for a couple of years, and I think he did probably what he thought was right and best. Didn't make him a good coach. I don't think that he shortchanged the girls in any respect in what he had to offer, but in reality, the girls were shortchanged because they didn't get the best possible coach they could have in that circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting thing. You know what? Good fortune a lot of times comes into play in our lives.
Yeah. Basketball this year in this area, and I'm talking about the college level, has been for a while. It's been rather disappointing. I always thought the Chicago area was a good college basketball town, and boy, it's been awful. When I haven't updated the records lately, but when Chicago State is your second best team in the area.
And God bless Chicago State. I have to say I've always been shook. I always have sort of shook my head when again they bring in a new coach at DePaul or Illinois or whatever, Northwestern, and they just talk about mining the rich crop that we have in the Chicago area. And I have to say, over the course of time, we've had some good pros that have come through the high school ranks here.
Sure.
But I don't see it as being as rich a bed of talent as other people want to make it. And that's just my own opinion. I think a lot of it goes back again. We're going to talk about the coaches in the Chicago Public League. I know that I have a good friend who's a girls coach, and we were talking one day, and I said, well, what do you think about AAU basketball? She goes, I hate it. And I said, well, why do you hate it? I said, the kids get a chance to play more during the summer. She said, well, the problem is that it's not a team game. You get everybody trying to make a name for themselves, and it becomes, who can, I'll use my words, not hers, who can show off the most. So what good is it? Because now you get these kids back for the season, and you sort of have to retrain them because they haven't.
They've been doing their own thing.
They've been doing their own thing
because they just viewed it as an opportunity to showcase themselves.
Yeah. And I think
no
that's a really super valid point.
No, that's a very valid point. I mean, you go back and think of watching. Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Hello, caller.
We might have a guest. Might have a guest on the program here.
It's LeBron James calling.
LeBron, it's you. Wait a minute. Is this his number? Oh, goodness gracious. Sakes alive.
I thought LeBron was listening.
No, the LeBron. Well, unless LeBron is a 6-foot redheaded guy that is, Irish, I don't know. It's not LeBron.
I don't think so. Where were we when we were so
rudely interrupted
and easily distracted?
Very easily distracted. Oh, we were talking about the retraining or
Oh yeah, it's just. I mean, I thought of that. You know, you think of the example, and I haven't watched him in any of it in a long time. But I mean, you know, I remember years ago going to watch the summer league over at Triton.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah, and nobody played defense.
Right, that's true.
But I mean, you had a mix. You had a mix there of college kids and pros.
Yes, you did.
And the pros didn't really care.
No, I mean they were just out
Yeah.
to for.
Yeah.
I mean they were practicing.
They were practicing. Or guys who had a career and never really made it, but were just gunners. I mean, I kept thinking of the great example, Sonny Parker.
Sonny Parker.
Yeah.
You know who really impressed me in that league, and he went on and he played. I guess you could still consider it major college ball, although it's not like in the spotlight. Major college ball was our Secretary of Education for the United States,
Oh,
Arnie Duncan.
Arnie
He was a
Duncan,
very,
yeah.
very,
He was a
very
good ball
nice
player.
ball player.
He
Yeah.
was a good ball player. Yeah, absolutely.
And but you know what? He was a guy who knew. He put it this way: he was smart enough to know what he could and couldn't do, and that made him a very good team player. I mean, he could do everything pretty well, and he knew that. He knew that he was not super outstanding, but I think he was probably smart enough to know. Yeah, I could play at Harvard, and he did.
Yeah.
And he played well.
Yeah. I'm just glancing at a little clip here from over the weekend about DePaul losing to St. John's, 72-64. Great name, by the way. Here's somebody for our old name team from St. John's, Sir Dominic Pointer.
Yeah, I saw that name, Sir Dominic Pointer. Okay.
DePaul being 3-14 in the Big East, 11-19 overall. 11-19 overall. That's got to be considered almost the way the way it's been for a number of years at DePaul. I almost consider that a successful season. I found it interesting, and I saw a link that, and I give the person credit for it. Somebody sent me a link to an article from the DePaulia, absolutely blasting the administration, the sports administration, Jeannie Ponsetto, for the lack of success in this program for many years.
Well,
the choice initially of going into the Big East, where they had no business being.
I was a first guesser, I would say, on that. I thought I could not figure out, and I'm not obviously we're only armchair experts, but my feeling was I had seen in the Big East, that's a banging. You better have some heavies in that conference to compete because it's going to be physical. And I don't see DePaul. Doesn't say DePaul can't be successful. Doesn't say anything like that. But to night in and night out, in conference-wise, have to play those types of teams. I just didn't see DePaul having that MO, and that's proved to be right. I think they're misplaced in that conference. I guess I understand that they wanted a conference affiliation greater than what were they in before this? I forget.
That was Conference USA. No, that was the Conference USA.
But they were much better placed than Conference USA. Conference USA, obviously not as big a name as the Big East, but I think they play pretty good basketball. There's decent basketball schools there. I don't think DePaul is set up or ever has been set up to be in a conference like the Big East. It's a mismatch. Mm-hmm. They don't recruit that type of a player.
No. And I find it interesting too, talking about changes in teams in running into a different level of competition. Notre Dame's having a problem now in the ACC.
That's a great point. Yeah, I saw that their conference record is
either 500 or under 500.
Yeah. That's a really good point. You got now Notre
They're
Dame,
in a whole different atmosphere.
It's a great point, Jim, because now Notre Dame was playing basketball in the Big East, and they were very competitive. But look at the guys. That are normally their best players. They're bangers, and they have guys. You might have a couple of guys who can score, but basically they're a physical team. Now you're in the ACC, which is more of a, I don't know if the word is right, but I'll use it, finesse conference. I mean, we're playing basketball. It's not about banging.
That's right.
There's some banging, but it's a different thing.
That's right.
And Notre Dame, I agree. They are sort of misplaced in the ACC.
And the fact that I'm not a Notre Dame fan, I'm kind of enjoying it, but still.
Mm-hmm.
again, it kind of goes into if you expand out the area that we might consider what we call local basketball, it's just another team that's not doing well.
Yeah, that's true. Very, very true. I even some of the state schools like Western, Southern, Northern. I don't think Illinois State. I don't know if any of them is even having much impact on their conferences and their individual seasons. I don't think are going that well either.
I don't think so either. Well, what else should we talk about today? What else is on your mind? Anything
I'll
else?
say one more thing about that past subject is we sort of glossed over Chicago State, and when I saw that Chicago State was going to be in the
WAC.
They're in the WAC, I thought, man, that's a pretty tough conference.
Yeah.
For Chicago State has not had that much success, but I'll tell you what, give them credit. They're competing well in that conference, and they're not backing down from anybody. I got to tell you. That ended up to be looks like a good move on their part.
I think it did. I mean, I think back to the days when who was it? Bob Hallberg was coaching at Chicago State, and he had some really successful teams.
Yeah, he did.
They were competing at a different level,
right.
but they had some really, really good ball clubs.
Jim,
24, 25 wins.
Listen to what we're saying, though, here. We talked about DePaul being in the Big East. We're talking about Notre Dame being in the Big East is what it's
changed now.
Okay.
It's changed now.
Okay, but
they've got to the basketball
Here's
schools.
my point, though. Notre Dame, Midwest School, ACC, is a Southern Conference, I would say.
Yeah, why are they there?
Chicago State, obviously, is in the city. We're in the WAC, which is, in the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
This whole deal with these conferences, the alignments, is getting totally out of hand, I think. And, when you think, especially if you think of, now Notre Dame and DePaul, I think are a little bit different situation. I think they can travel a little more easily than Chicago State. Chicago State is not a big money school.
No.
And for them to be traveling to WAC games, I wonder how long that'll last.
I'm wondering about that too, and I'm wondering how some of these schools feel coming in here and playing in. They have a nice arena, but it's not exactly overwhelming.
No, that's another great point. You're coming in from Montana.
Yeah,
it would be one thing if you're playing at the Horizon or the Stadium.
Yeah,
you're
95th. You're 95th in state or wherever they
it's
are.
It's a little different story.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. What do we got here? We got about 5 minutes left here.
5 minutes and you have nothing to talk about?
Oh, I don't know. What do you think? We could talk. We could start getting into a little bit more. NFL draft is coming up here in another couple of months.
Have you decided who our first draft pick's going to be?
Well, this week it's going to be Timmy Jernigan.
Timmy Jernigan's a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
He's the guy who's perfect for the nose tackle position, isn't he?
I think so. And now the latest.
The experts all say that.
The experts all say that. It must be true. And now Johnny Football is going to be the number one draft pick.
Johnny Manziel.
Houston's going to take him now.
Okay. Well, that's
and Teddy Bridgewater has slipped to number 4, where Cleveland's going to take him.
This whole that's my message thing. Why you guys can hear these things well, huh?
Yeah, LeBron is leaving him.
LeBron left. He just left the message. I'll be signing with the Bulls immediately after the season.
He'll be our guest next time.
Really? Can you see? LeBron might have to really duck down to get in here, though, John. He's a little tall for this space. But at any rate, you're saying what, Jim?
Jernigan, this latest one, whoever's putting this this one together, Jernigan being the Bears' number 1 draft pick at 14. The first 5, Johnny Manziel going to Houston, St. Louis with their draft pick from Washington, Jake Matthews, offensive tackle from Texas A&M, Jadeveon Clowney, defensive end from South Carolina, going to Jacksonville, Teddy Bridgewater, quarterback from Louisville, going to Cleveland, and Blake Bortles going to Oakland.
Is he a quarterback, Bortles?
I thought he was a quarterback. They're listing him as a cornerback.
Cornerback, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, yesterday was being Monday. They started to the pros, the NFL started franchising some players. The Bears did not designate any franchise players, but the shopping list kind of comes into play now here.
Oh, you really have been studying this stuff.
I
What's the
know.
shopping list now? What's our shopping list?
Two
Jim?
top safeties. The Bills' Jarius Byrd, the Browns' T.J. Ward. They're going to test free agency.
Good for them. Okay.
Louis Delmas.
Good old Louis Delmas.
Louis Delmas.
Yeah, Louis
Isn't he-
Delmas is available.
Isn't he about 84 years old?
No, I thought he
seems
was
like
still
he's-
managing the cab stand and taxi.
He seems like he's been around forever.
Yeah, I don't know who Louis Delmas is. I've heard the name, but I don't know.
it
What does he
seems-
do?
He's a defensive end, isn't he? Or maybe he is managing the cab stand.
Yeah, well,
Maybe that's what it
confusing
is.
him with Danny DeVito's character in Taxi.
Yeah. The Bengals did not tag Michael Johnson, who had 3.5 sacks last year after posting 11.5 in 2012. He's 27. He's still young enough. He could be productive. The Raiders did not tag Lamar Houston, who had 6 sacks last year. And, as the Seahawks said 2 weeks ago, they did not tag Martellus Bennett's brother.
You know what? I'm always leery, especially about defensive guys being free agents, because it's so critical the way the other players around you affect your performance. When we got Philip Daniels years ago from Seattle, he was a double digits in sacks, but that year he had, I think there was maybe 3 guys on the Seattle line that were double digits in sacks. So they were all sort of playing off of each other. When he came here, he was an excellent football player, but he never put those types of numbers up. And shame on the Bears for not realizing what his actual strengths were. Because, again, a good football player, solid, but not a guy who's going to put up double-digit numbers sack-wise, especially as a defensive tackle. He had a good year, and a lot of that was based on the guys that were around him. Defense, I think, probably even more than offense, I think that comes into play. I remember years ago reading about how John Paxson had very little success in the pros. I think he came from San Antonio to the Bulls.
Yeah.
But the Bulls were able to fit him in because when he came out to play and do his minutes, because you had Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, 2 hounds out there defensively, they could sort of stretch what they did and make his defensive role less, okay, because they could do more. And so he was able to function well in the defensively and offensively for the Bulls because he was surrounded by guys who helped him do that.
He was surrounded by guys who do that, and they created the opportunities for him.
Right. Where he couldn't.
Where
really
he
do it
had some
himself.
success hitting it from threes and out there.
So I would say you really have to watch, especially if you're going to pick up defensive free agents. You really have to know what you're buying.
Yeah.
That'd be my point.
All right. Basketball, high school basketball tonight for us, Tuesday.
Wow. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it, too. Ridgewood versus
Vernon Hills.
Vernon Hills. Johnsburg and Carmel. First game. We should have some fun tonight watching high school basketball, and that's going to wrap it up for us this edition. Just just as a reminder, this is Jay Loing along with Reese Mazoon. Jan Daveries spinning the dials in there. Kelvin Sanchez in charge of the whole operation.
Oh, boy.
Thanks for listening. We'll
Not
see you
going to
next.
be happy with John giving us the finger.
We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. This broadcast was directed by John DeVita, edited by Stephen Lehman. Our audio engineer is James Rohde, and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network is John Shikanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Tuesday, March the 4th, the year 2014. Be safe, and thanks for listening.